Good morning and welcome to All About the Neighborhood, Episode 5. So we're here this morning at this beautiful condo, uptown St. John at 115 Prince William Street. And we have a special guest this morning. Welcome, Donna, Mayor Donna, re-elected just last night. We're so happy. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here. And what a fabulous space you're in today.
It's pretty amazing. Uptown is pretty amazing. And aside from congratulating you on your win last night and looking forward to the next 4 years and the momentum that you've created, and now we're excited to see that ongoing momentum. You've been a resident with your family, your husband, your 4 children, grandchild now, and
yes, that's right.
Been living on Germain Street, uptown St. John for 41 years. Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty remarkable thing. Your kids all went to neighborhood schools. You've been a heritage advocate, you've been a neighborhood advocate, and now you're the mayor. So it's pretty exciting to have you here because our podcast is all about the neighborhood, and I don't know of anybody that's more all about the neighborhood than you've been.
Well, I'll tell you, my husband and I moved here in 1984 from Halifax, and we came with our 3-month-old baby. And we rented for a while, took an apartment because we really wanted to have a look at the city and see where we wanted to live. And he opened his practice in obstetrics and gynecology. And so we looked everywhere. We probably looked for we arrived in October, and then we started looking right after Christmas that year. And it wasn't until June that we found where we wanted to be. And we looked at all of the city, but I found the uptown so compelling. It was walkable, and it had a lot of amenities that you could walk to. We loved the architecture. Yep. In those days, the buildings were a lot cheaper. Of course, that's 41 years ago. And it was just so charming. And so we said, this is where we want to stay. And so we bought the house in '85, and then I had another baby in '86, and then I had one in '87. And then I had another one in '91, and we decided that that's where we would stay. And I just investigated the neighborhood. There was a little school just down the street, not far from us, St. John the Baptist, a few blocks over. And so when I went down to take a look at that school, I knew that the kids could come home for lunch every day. And so it was sort of an idyllic situation for me, and that's what I wanted. I had a husband who was sleeping probably 1.5 nights at the hospital a week on his obstetrical call. So it was nice to be someplace where I could walk and my kids could walk to school, and we were sort of self-sufficient being uptown. So it was the place, and I'm still here. My husband has tried to, suggest maybe we should move and within the uptown area, but maybe into a space like this.
Maybe a condo.
That's right.
It could happen. Initially I said, no, I'm going out of there in a pine box, but I could be maybe convinced when I see this space. It's so amazing and gorgeous. So no, it's been good. It's been a good 41 years.
So I find one of the big appeals for me, because I also moved from Halifax, was the sense of community here and just how unique it is here compared to Halifax. Did you find it was similar then when you moved here?
I did, because the neighborhood, this neighborhood I find is small, and people are genuinely, they are very friendly. And we always talk about, the people of St. John being very friendly and welcoming. When the seniors' games were here a few years ago, I met a woman at the feel good store, and she said she pulled out her map, for something, yep. And she was from out of town, and she said 5 people stopped to ask if they could help, and she said 3 wanted to take her home for dinner. So I said that is so typical St. John. So yes, yeah. St. John is different, and it is a very welcoming community. And so I did find that, it's a very close-knit community, very supportive community.
Yeah,
so it's been great. And I find with the walkability, especially of the uptown, you do get to meet your neighbors, a lot more than if I was jumping into a vehicle and driving wherever I'm going. So, if you're like going all the time, just like I said, walking, it's been great. It's been great for socialization.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Anytime I walk down the street here, I bump into somebody I know.
I know, it's hard
to... It was never the experience.
And you've only been here 5 years.
That's right.
I know.
So tell me, Donna, as a parent, so this strong sense of community, you've already mentioned it several times. So as a parent, what did that strong sense of community mean?
Oh, it was wonderful as a parent because, the kids all ended up with friends that were in their class. And, my kids all have friends today from those years when they went to school at St. John the Baptist School. And then we were linked also with the church, St. John the Baptist Church down there. Mm-hmm. And so there was that community as well. And so there was a lot of crossover.
I got to teach one of the grades of religious studies down there, you know, so the same kids that I knew from school, that my kids were going to school with, some of them were over there for that. So it's been a strong sense of community for my kids as well. And in fact, one of my daughters bought up on Wentworth, you know, to stay in.
I was involved in that, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, you were. Yeah, to stay in this community, you know. Yeah.
They've all sort of coming back.
Yeah, exactly. One of them's renting in the uptown area, and then the other one is across the water there in Annapolis Royal. But she would like to get back here.
She'll come back.
So I know heritage means a lot to me and my grandfather. I know it means a lot to you as well, and we're big advocates for the preservation of that. Mm-hmm. Why do you think it's so important that we preserve our heritage properties?
Well, they're built, the architecture and the work in them is just not available today. I mean, it would cost a fortune to have the woodwork milled and just, you know, the intricacies of it, the plaster work and everything. So it's nice on the inside. If you can save the architectural detail, it's worth doing it, because it just is so charming in your home. I mean, when you just look at the frames on these windows here, they're amazing, you know. Mm-hmm. And so that's important. And I think, you know, the structure on the outside, it tells of a time when St. John was very affluent and was one of the top communities across the country, St. John, New Brunswick. I think there was like Toronto, St. John, maybe Montreal, you know. So, you know, there was a time in our history, and I think we need to remember that and reflect on that, because I feel like that is the road that we should be on and want to be on, and I think there's some real opportunities with the port right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
To, you know, to be that community again. And it's, like I said, it makes a very charming uptown. There's so many people, because I live so close to the waterfront, you know, we see the cruise ship visitors all the time, and they love the architecture. I mean, a lot of people will say that they haven't been to any place that has this much stock of this Victorian architecture. So it's very.
So you moved in 41 years ago.
Did.
I moved in 35 years ago, and when I think of, you know, as compelling as it was to me when I got here, but I remember what it was like, and I can only imagine 41 years ago. So how have you seen the neighborhood evolve over this period of time?
Well, the neighborhood's really evolved. I mean, when we moved here, I was probably the only person that had any children on the block. It was, you know, mostly older people that had lived in the homes for a long time as well. But now I see, you know, more young people, more young families. There's more strollers uptown. So the vibrancy's changed. There's all of the upper stories in those days had not been triggered for all this living, you know. And St. John, the buildings were not really valued in those days for really what they were. And
well, it's interesting you mentioned that the prices are a little different now than they were.
Yes.
But when you said that, it triggered the thought of me that the prices were a lot different, but generally speaking, the condition of the buildings was a lot different than it is now. So the amount of investment that's occurred in the neighborhood in the last 40 years, tens and tens, probably hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when we moved in, I couldn't have, I had an electric stovetop. You know, I couldn't use a toaster in that thing. I think I had like a 100 or, you know, entry.
You're blowing fuses, huh?
Yeah, we had fuses instead of breakers. So, you know, the whole electrical system needed to be redone. A lot of the plumbing had to be redone. The brickwork needed pointing.
Windows,
Yeah, windows, you know, your roof. So there's lots to do in an old home. But at the end of the day, when you look at what you would buy for that same price that you've purchased and made your investment in, you've got a much better investment, I think, in one of the historic structures.
I agree. So what do you hope the experience is like for the next generation growing up and living in Uptown?
I feel it seems like all over the world people are coming back to the uptowns or downtown areas.
Yeah.
And when I read about the development of those areas, and I read about aging, since I'm on that road, people who live in cities that have active transportation, so they have walking lanes, you know, they have public transit, they have, you know, great sidewalks and amenities. Those people tend to have better physical, but also better mental health, which is interesting. Yeah. And it's that connectivity that they get because they're on the ground and they're meeting people. And if they're on a bus stop, you know, they may see that same person every day, or they may walk by it. And so people notice when you're not missing, or there's always conversations. when I was in Copenhagen a year ago in October, the bike lanes all have sort of like social connectivity nodes where, you know, maybe there's a school there, or maybe there's a coffee shop there where they intersect. And that's important because you want to create those hubs where people gather. You want to keep people gathering. You want to keep the social fabric of your community on the go. So it's been...
Well, that's a true community.
That's how you build community, and that's how you keep community going.
Exactly.
So really, you know, you have that infrastructure, a lot of it already right here. You just need to activate it, you know. And so we've done that with Atoli Magahamik, putting in a great gathering space down there. And you'll see that as we go forward. You know, you'll see green spaces, and we're working on the playground down here. We'll get another $1.4 million upgrade this year. You've seen Broad Street
It's shrunk a little bit.
Yeah.
and they've put a nice piece of median in it, grass median in it. So it's all those things that make a city look and feel more walkable as well. You know, and if you want to get building, you know, would be hard to cross Broad Street if you put buildings on the other side. So wide. So you need that.
So since we're down there in this conversation, long before you were the mayor, more than 10 years ago, you were part of an initiative, really a citizen initiative in the neighborhood to build a new school. And so you worked along with other neighbors, other community leaders. It really was a community initiative and a community effort to really not just build a new school, which was necessary, but to make that school, again, more part of a community, an evolving community, an improving community. And so now we look down there today and there's steel going up, and about 2 years from now the school will open. So you have to have a pretty strong sense of pride about that. But also I'd like to sort of hear how you feel that is, in addition to the work on Broad Street, how that's going to sort of shift the whole nature of that end of the neighborhood.
Well, we knew we needed a new school in the South End, and that school, the St. John the Baptist King Edward, half is owned by the diocese and half is owned by the Department of Education. And so, you know, and it's built, I think, in the 40s. So we knew we needed a new school, and we knew we wanted to have it just below St. James Street because we wanted to drive development farther south on the peninsula. And we also knew that within the mixed neighborhood is really the best neighborhood, so it has a little bit of everything in it.
Right.
And so with a mixed neighborhood and with the rate of poverty that is now in this neighborhood, in this little school, it's like 48%, so 1 in 2 children go to school that are going to school down there live in poverty. So how could we you know, build a school that would work for everyone? And so we wanted to make sure that it included a learning commons, and we wanted to ensure that it had a lot of these other amenities that could help for gathering of people and for, you know, just for the kids. And so I was on the site selection team, and we looked at a few sites. We looked at the original site where the school was, but they would have had to been off site for a couple of years. We looked at the sugar refinery site. We have to cross that's a busy corner. It's kind of like a ring road, you know, for traffic. And then
It's a long way down.
it's a long way down, but this site here where we owned, the city owned the back half of that whole lot, the south half of that lot with Rainbow Park. We said, look, every school has a playground. So we said, look, you're gonna build a playground in a school. Why don't we share the space? You know, if you need a green space, let's get it on the roof of the building. Because all the specs were mostly for schools that were in the suburban area. And so inner city schools, you know, they haven't been building those in the last few years. So this was a big change for the Department of Education.
Well, it's an example of, 1 + 1 does not always equal just 2.
No.
And you built on existing infrastructure. You brought things together. You were talking about, nodes earlier about transportation. It becomes that in a different way about kids and families and.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been an excellent project. And we're hoping to attract a collection of different socioeconomic groups of families in the area. Because that's good for everyone.
Yeah. So we got one last question for you.
Okay.
All right. If someone who had left 20 years ago were to come back today, what do you think would surprise them the most?
Well, they all say to me, "Wow." when I see them coming back. And you know, my eldest would have been 42 this year, so I'm seeing that generation starting to migrate home a lot. And they love the common spaces that we're doing, the waterfront they love. They love the diversity of the city. They say, this is not the city we left, you know, 20 years ago. So they find that impressive. They love the walkability of the city and how it's grown, how this whole peninsula has grown. So it's been great, you know, to see, and it's great to have that generation heading back home. And I guess, you know, you never really appreciate what you've got until you move away. And, you know, and so I think that, you know, they see what St. John is and how they could live here and raise a family here, and you know, and like the connectivity like we talked about, and the community that we talked about. So it's a pretty special place.
It's like,
It really is.
just like you did.
Yeah, just like I did.
So Donna, so look, thank you so much for being here this morning.
My pleasure.
We're honored to be like kind of the, I think probably the second stop this morning on the first day of your new term. I think you were at CBC.
I was at 7 o'clock.
So it's great to have you. We hope to have you back. We wish you very, very much success for all of us, for you and for all of us in the next term. And thanks again for coming. So folks, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back next segment in a few moments, and we'll update you on latest trends, latest stats, and information about the real estate market in the neighborhood and in Greater St. John. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back. This is segment 2, episode 5 of It's All About the Neighborhood. We're back here at the condo at 115 Prince William.
Yep, this beautiful space.
Unit 302. It's on the market. It's available. $599, fully renovated, 2 full baths, both fully en suite, beautiful kitchen, gorgeous space, views of the harbor. It's fabulous. So you call Jake and he'll get it done for you. We're right in the middle of the spring market, which has always been a good market, bad market, neutral market. Spring has always been the busiest time of the year, and we're right in the middle of that here, mid-May or so. And people keep speculating about, you know, how's the market, how's it going, is it slowing down, all those questions. And people generally, I think, based on all the stuff that's going on in the world, kind of think it is kind of not great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the assumption based on the external factors is that it's, you know, having negative impacts on the local real estate market even.
Exactly. And so we're here to sort of put some facts to the speculation and give you stats, not just cold raw numbers, but a little bit of conversation and interpretation around what those numbers mean. So at the end of April, we have the data here for 4 months of 2026, and the market in St. John is still not balanced. It is still a seller's market. We have a little slowing of activity. However, prices keep rising. There's still multiple offers in not every time, not all the time, but certainly in the mid-range of affordability. I give you some examples of my own experience the last 2-3 weeks. I wrote an offer for a buyer client of mine in Milledgeville 2 weeks ago, around $450,000, $500,000. There were 9 offers, and I was able to prevail. I got the deal for my folks, but we paid $100,000 over the list price. I wrote an offer last weekend for a buyer client of mine on a 3-unit on the east side out to Loch Lomond Roadway. A newcomer, buyer client of mine. She was going to live in one of the units. Beautiful unit, beautiful building, just north of $500,000. There were 4 offers. We offered substantially over the asking price. We didn't get the deal. And so, it goes on and on and on. But, just to put some numbers to it, you see the unevenness of it and why we say it's still not balanced and it's still in favor of sellers. So year to date, 4 months of 2026, the number of sales in Greater St. John, just under 500 residential sales, which is like 8% less than last year. So the activity is down a bit. However, the average price is even, about 1%. $350,000 is the median price so far this year. But the number of days on market is the same as last year, only 25 days on market, which includes due diligence. The average sale price still over list by 2%. So you see, it's still not in favor of buyers, it's in favor of sellers.
You know, absolutely. Because I mean, you know, we're still seeing population growth in the St. John area, but you know, we're not seeing inventory added at the same rate. So I mean, it goes to what we talked about last time. You know, there is still a huge demand for, you know, single-family homes, condos, things in which people can purchase, but they're just not adding enough to the market, and that's why we continue to see multiple offers in home selling for over ask, and in some cases substantially over the ask price.
There is not enough inventory. We need you builders to build houses still. We need you to build them in the middle market, mid-market, the missing middle. And what is the missing middle, Jake? It's
500 and below, I would say.
but townhouses, garden homes, semi-detached houses. We don't really need, in the moment, more apartments to rent. No. We need more condos to sell. There's virtually, I shouldn't say nothing, but there's hardly any condos for sale. And so we need condo development. Maybe we need to convert some of the rental units that we've been building and that we're still building. Maybe some of those should be converted to condo so people can buy them. People want to buy, they want to buy an apartment.
Based on what I've looked at, you know, in terms of historical data, the number of condos available pre-COVID were, you know, pretty substantial, and now, you know, yeah, it is effectively, you know, there's really nothing on the market compared to that.
Right, so when we did this last time, episode 4, about a month ago, I had 4 active condo listings, sold 2 of them. We still have this one available, and we still have one on Waterloo Street, which is a challenge, but nevertheless, we need more development still, and we are stuck. Moncton and Fredericton, I have the numbers here. I won't get into them now, but you can call us. We'll be happy to go through any of this. The Moncton market and the Fredericton market are both balanced. Average sale price is 2 or 3% under the average list, which is kind of normal. You know, the amount of inventory is much higher. The number of days on market is higher than St. John. So we are still underbuilt, underserved, underdeveloped. Let's drill into a couple of our favorite neighborhoods just for a minute. So, you know, we spend most of our time, but not all of our time, here in the neighborhood, uptown. Year to date, uptown activity is stable. Average days on market is actually a little less than it was a year ago. So uptown is getting a little closer to balanced. Milledgeville, where I wrote, as I just said, that offer a couple of weeks ago, and there were 9 offers, imagine.
Milledgeville remains to be a hotspot. You know, that's where a lot, I have 3 buyer clients right now that are looking to buy in Milledgeville. And there's really not much there, especially in the mid-range, available.
Well, Milledgeville, you know, from a modern perspective in terms of what is a typical suburban neighborhood, Milledgeville is the best in-city, modern, typical suburbia. You know, hospitals there, the university's there, there's lots of people coming and going. Yep. Students, medical professionals, academics, all kinds of people. Exactly. And in Milledgeville, there's not enough houses. Sales year to date in units, so this is really off track with the whole market. The number of houses sold in Milledgeville so far this year is 40% more than last year. And there hasn't been a whole lot of development out there in terms of things for sale. There's lots of apartments, but nevertheless, I mean, the pressure on the market is substantial. And the average house price now in Milledgeville is $440,000. So, you know, and the average sale price over list kind of speaks to my issue around 9 offers, 4% over list on average. So Milledgeville is a ripe opportunity for anybody who wants to be building something, or people who should be building something that aren't. They should get themselves to Milledgeville and build some houses. And not just the missing middle in Milledgeville. You know, again, the coming and goings in Milledgeville with the university and the hospital, these are high income professional people. So we need more houses in Milledgeville. And quickly, the most active neighborhood in the St. John region is the Valley. And the Valley, so far this year, 4 months of 2026, number of sales up 18%, almost 20% higher than last year. The price is kind of stable. The median price of Milledgeville now, not Milledgeville, the Valley now is just under $500,000. Substantial. Average sale price over list, 3% over. Days on market, only 21 days on market. 3 weeks on market. 3 weeks to sell your house in Milledgeville if you want to list it. And that includes due diligence of, 5 to 10 days. So houses in Milledgeville, I keep saying Milledgeville, houses in the Valley are, boom, 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 bang, 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 fast sales. So the market's active and it's underserved and it's not balanced and it's still a seller's market. And so we need listings. We do. And we understand that if you want to sell your house, the first challenge you have is where you're going to go.
Right, exactly.
And so we need people to build things. Nevertheless, it is May. The sun is shining. The weather is getting warmer. Activity is strong. We can help you buy your house with data and solid information. If you're in a competing situation on an offer, we can help you navigate that with strategies that we think are strong and unique and get you what you want but protect you at the same time. And if you have a house to sell and you're trying to figure out where you're going to go, we can help you with that too. We can give you data, not just opinions. We can give you our experience, and we can do that in a way that is always about you and not about us. And between Jake and I, 25, almost 26 years of experience. So we're dedicated to this business. We love the city. We're happy to have the mayor here this morning on her first day as being reelected. And we're looking forward to the summer, and we're looking forward to the growth in the city, and we're looking forward to more development. And we would love to sit with you if you're a developer and provide you with the kind of information and data that you need to make the kind of decisions that we think you should be making. Not based on old assumptions, not based on what happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but what's happening now. We have the data. That's right. Do that.
So do you want to pivot and talk about uptown development a bit?
Do that.
Yeah, I'll do that. So I've heard some rumors about the development near Tin Can Beach. I know they were on the site testing the soil, I believe. Right. Yeah. What have you heard about it?
Well, I've spoken to a fellow realtor who has some engagement with the developers down there. He's part of that crowd, and he's been involved in a lot of projects uptown and other parts of the city. I bumped into him the other day at an event, and he told me the same thing, that there's been a rearrangement in some partnerships, some rearrangements in financing, and it looks like they're ready to pull the trigger. And that's exciting, but it's more rental units, more rental units. And I wish somebody would start to build some things. So we've got a new project that single family infill, 3-story, brand new, Harding Street, just about finished. We're gonna have some open houses there in the next couple of weeks. And we are confident and hopeful that if we can give our developer clients what they need on the project at 23 Harding, there's another project across the street. They own the land, they've got plans, and the same developer, our clients, also has plans and intentions to build 4 townhouses. It's just exactly what we've been talking about at the corner of Charlotte and Queen Square South, facing Queen Square, prime location. Block, not even a block, from the new school. It seals up on the new school. The project's bombing right along, and it should be open. It will be open back to school in 2028, 2 years from now. So
we're almost there. It's not too far away. Just 2 years. We've waited as a city for I think quite a bit longer. So it's on the horizon now.
It's on the horizon.
I think 99 King now is at its full height.
Yes. 99 King, Percy Wilbur's project, now renting. The property behind us on the waterfront is now leasing. Yep. So there's a lot of momentum, a lot of positive things, and a lot of good reason to invest in St. John. So, look, we appreciate you following us along. We please make comments, click and like, follow us, and again, pick up the phone sometimes if you'd like to have these kind of conversations that are data laden, data rich. When you're trying to make decisions of whether to buy or sell or build, please give us a call, and we'll be happy to sit with you and help you work it through and make the right kind of decision.
And just one last thing, if you're somebody who's wanting to sell, we'd be curious to hear what your biggest concern is or would be about selling right now. Is it you don't have somewhere to go, the lack of options? But we'd like to hear from you either way.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month. It's all about the neighborhood.